Legal environment of the real estate brokerage is the section that we're going to do next. Upon completion of this section, we should be able to explain the role of a real estate broker, designated broker, managing broker, and firm in the context of a real estate transaction. Demonstrate an awareness of legal duties and obligations to the client and other parties involved. Demonstrate an understanding of the sources and scope of the various regulations and laws that affect operations of a real estate firm. Differentiate between legal and ethical requirements affecting the real estate firm. Describe policies that should be in place to guide compliance. Identify the statutory duties created in the operation of a real estate firm. Roles of brokers and their legal duties and obligations. The designated broker is the title of the person who is recognized by the state and the MLS as the responsible member for brokerage transactions. This is the person that's ultimately responsible for the actions of all the brokers within the brokerage. It may include certain voting rights at the local MLS and the authorization to sign certain documents. When a broker leaves the brokerage, the designated broker is responsible for signing their license off and returning it to the DOL, Department of Licensing. In Olympia, there's only one designated broker per brokerage. Each branch office of a brokerage is required to have a branch manager. The nomenclature for this classification has not changed from the previous classification. The managing broker is the title of a person who may be a managing broker for a brokerage or a branch office, or a broker who has the education to manage an office, even if they're not doing so. That's what we're studying to take the test for in this series. Washington State Managing Broker Exam. The managing broker is responsible for the supervision of their brokers and is responsible for the review of all transactions. The designated broker, who may delegate further duties to the managing broker. The branch manager is responsible for the affiliates of a branch office. A brokerage must have more than one office to have a branch office. A brokerage with a single office is not considered a branch. There is one designated broker for all the branch offices, and there is one branch manager per branch office. A branch manager is usually considered a member, not a subscriber, as brokers are considered by most MLS services, and he or she has voting rights in the MLS. Like a designated broker, a branch manager has the duty and the authority to supervise affiliated brokers, hire affiliates, terminate and sign off on brokers' real estate license, review all transactions. Broker. This term refers to all licenses not listed above. The name used previously was agent. All agents, and they still use that in some states, or they also use the word salesperson. If you get your managing broker's license, then in certain states, when you go to get your license there, it's the difference between being able to be licensed as a broker versus a salesperson. Where was I? The term used previously was agent. All agents and brokers who renew their license after June 30th of 2010 will need to complete a transitional course. This will enable them to acquire the title of broker. Brokers will be required to take more coursework and clock hours prior to taking their real estate exam. A broker is an agent for the designated broker. All transactions and listings belong to the brokerage and not to the broker. Note, some of the educational requirements for brokers changed after June 30th, 2009. You should keep current on these changes. For further information, go to dol.wa.gov, business, real estate, renews. The distinction between a client and a customer has to do with responsibility and agency. This is a big part of the test. The distinction between a client and a customer, and the differences between things like statutory and fiduciary. Duties of a broker to all parties. In Washington, regardless of whether a broker is an agent, the broker owes to all parties they provide real estate brokerage services to the following duties. If you're a broker in Washington State, you owe all the parties reasonable skill and care, honesty, and good faith, to present all written communications to and from either party, to disclose all listing material facts, to account in a timely manner for all money and property, to provide a pamphlet on the law of real estate agency, to disclose who the broker represents. Agency duties owed to clients. When a broker is acting on behalf of a buyer, seller, or acting as a dual agent, the broker owes additional duties to their client principals. The client is the principal of the broker. They are in addition to duties we just discussed that are owed to all parties. They are loyalty, disclosure of any conflicts of interest, advice they seek, expert advice outside the broker's area, and confidentiality. Loyalty means taking no action that is adverse or detrimental to the client's interest in a transaction. Conflicts of interest, to timely disclose any conflicts of interest. Expert advice, to advise the client who seeks expert advice on matters relating to the transactions that are beyond my scope. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a tax professional. Don't ask me to perform as such because I can't. Confidentiality, not to disclose any confidential information from or about the client except under subpoena or court order, even after termination of the agency relationship. Do not gossip about your clients. The duration of the confidentiality owed to the principal by a real estate broker does not have an expiration. It lasts forever. Example, the listing broker knows that the lowest amount the seller would be willing to accept is $729 for their home. During an open house, a buyer asks the listing broker what's the lowest price the seller will take. The broker replies that he represents the seller and that the person visiting the house should make a solid offer. That's a great example of representing the client's best interest. Confidential information means information from or concerning a principal of a broker that was acquired by the broker during the course of an agency relationship. The principal reasonably expects it to be kept confidential. The principal has not disclosed or authorized to be disclosed to third parties. If disclosed, would operate to the detriment of the principal, and the principal personally would not be obligated to disclose to the other party. Don't gossip. The real estate agency pamphlet, which is required to be given to all parties who receive real estate brokerage services, will contain the law of agencies that explicitly codify everything we just discussed under the requirements of agency. It's important not only for you as a broker to be able to follow these laws, to have a thorough understanding of the laws, but also because you will most likely be answering questions from clients who want to know the meaning of certain provisions in the agency pamphlet. That's actually never happened to me. The purpose of giving all clients the pamphlet and the clear disclosure of representation, who represented who, is aimed at transparency and clarity. The laws are designed to make the real estate professional and its required duties less esoteric and more public. Sounds like transparency to me. Sources of and scope of regulations and laws. The following federal agencies regulate the real estate industry and the brokerage. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, assists homeowners by developing regulations and acts. Some divisions within HUD include Home Improvement Branch, Single Family Housing Program Development, Inspector General's Fraud Hotline, Office of Manufactured Housing Program, Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, and the Office of RESPA and Interstate Land Sales. The following are links to some basic information found on the HUD homepage. Buy a home, avoid a foreclosure, find rental assistance, apply for a grant, talk to a housing counselor, get involved in my community, file a fair housing discrimination complaint, making homes affordable, HUD implementation of the Recovery Act, FHA, public and Indian housing. More information can be found at the HUD portal. The Real Estate Settlement Protection Act, these are all really important things for the test, just so you know. RESPA was first passed in 1974 and was established to protect consumers during residential real estate financing transactions. Its main purpose, so the main purpose of RESPA is to inform home buyers about the estimated and actual costs of settlement services, the fees and services involved in completing the lending transaction, and to eliminate unscrupulous practices that can increase the cost of settlement services, including kickbacks, unnecessary fees, and referral fees for services provided by affiliated companies. RESPA is regulated by HUD. Department of the Treasury. The Department of the Treasury oversees the IRS with respect to property taxation. The purpose of the United States Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, is to protect national security, detect criminal activity, and safeguard financial systems from abuse. The department investigates money laundering in real estate transactions. The following was taken from FinCEN's website. FinCEN, FINCEN, was created in 1990 to support federal, state, local, and international law enforcement by analyzing the information required under the Bank Secrecy Act, BSA. BSA's record keeping and reporting requires establishment of financial trail for investigators to follow as they track criminals, their activities, and their assets. So this is just to track dirty money. Dirty money can take many routes, some complex, some simple. And this talks about that real estate is a way that people use to hide their money. FinCEN researches and analyzes the information and other critical forms of intelligence to support financial criminal investigations. The ability to link different databases together. Further information can be found at the U.S. Treasury website. So the main thing to know for your test, FinCEN is who looks for money laundering in real estate transactions. And the U.S. Attorney General has the authority to enforce criminal or civil antitrust violations. And the FBI, civil actions of antitrust violations may be investigated by the FBI. Interesting. I think a trust is when a whole antitrust is probably to decrease the chances of monopolies. The Department of Justice, DOJ, administers the American with Disabilities Act, ADA, and has the authority to investigate criminal or civil antitrust violations. So the Department of Justice, the ADA, and the FBI are looking into antitrust violations. Antitrust laws protect competition. Free and open competition benefits consumers by ensuring lower prices and new and better products. In a freely competitive market, each competing business generally will try to attract consumers by cutting its prices and increasing the quality of its products or services. Competition and profit opportunities it brings also stimulate business to find new, innovative, and more efficient methods of production. Consumers benefit from competition through lower prices and better products and services. Companies that fail to understand or react to consumer needs may soon find themselves losing out in the competitive battle. When competitors agree to price fix, rig bids, or divide up customers, consumers lose the benefit of competition. The prices that result when competitors agree in these ways are artificially high. Such prices do not accurately reflect cost and therefore distort the allocation of society's resources. The result is a loss not only to U.S. consumers and taxpayers, but also to the U.S. economy. When the competitive system is operating effectively, there's no need for government intrusion. The law recognizes that certain arrangements between firms, such as competitors cooperating to perform joint research and development projects, may benefit consumers by allowing the firms that have reached the agreement to compete more effectively against other firms. The law does not condemn all agreements between companies, only those that threaten to raise prices to consumers or to deprive them of new and better products. But when competing firms get together to fix prices, to rig bids, to divide business between them, and to make other anti-competitive arrangements, they provide no benefit to consumers. The government will act promptly to protect the interests of American consumers. Further information can be found at usdoj.gov, Department of Justice. The Federal Housing Authority, FHA, insures loans and offers programs for buyers from their website. So FHA does not loan money, it insures loans. The Federal Housing Administration, generally known as FHA, provides mortgage insurance on loans made by FHA approved lenders throughout the United States and its territories. FHA insures mortgages on single family and multifamily homes, including manufactured homes and hospitals. It is the largest insurer of mortgages in the world, insuring over 34 million properties since its inception in 1934. The Federal Housing Finance Agency was created to oversee Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. From their website, the Federal Housing Financing Agency mission, FHFA, ensure that the housing GSEs operate in a safe and sound manner so that they serve as a reliable source of liquidity and funding for housing finance and community investments. So that sounds like you are actually borrowing money from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and it's insured by FHA. And the Federal Housing Finance Agency is the one that oversees those loans. Remember that. You'll need it. Commission on Civil Rights, Fair Housing Civil Rights. Commissions on civil rights and fair housing civil rights are administered through HUD. They make the following assurances: to investigate complaints alleging that citizens are being deprived of their right to vote by reason of race, color, religion, sex, age, disability, or national origin, or by reason of fraudulent practices. So, the Commission on Civil Rights of the Fair Housing Civil Rights makes sure that people have the right to vote. To study and collect information relating to discrimination or denial of equal protection of the laws under the Constitution because of race, color, religion, sex, age, disability, or national origin, or in the administration of justice. To appraise federal laws and policies with respect to discrimination or denial of equal protection of the laws because of race, religion, color, sex, age, disability, or national origin, or in the administration of justice. And that's to appraise federal laws and policies with respect to discrimination or denial of equal protection of the laws. To serve as a national clearinghouse for information in regard to discrimination or denial of equal protection of the laws because of same stuff. To submit reports. So their job is to investigate complaints, study and collect information, appraise federal law and policies, serve as a national clearinghouse for information in respect to this stuff, submit reports, and issue public service announcements to discourage discrimination. And they submit their reports to the president and to Congress. And that is, who's in charge of that? The Commission on Civil Rights, Fair Housing Civil Rights. The Federal Emergency Management Act. This is a big deal. You should know more about FEMA if you don't already. Outside of this, I would do your own research on FEMA. Very powerful. So is the USDA. Federal Emergency Management Agency. The Federal Emergency Management Agency oversees the disaster assistance and flood insurance program of the United States. They do more than that. From their website, FEMA has more than 3,700 full-time employees. They work at FEMA headquarters in Washington, D.C., at regional and area offices across the country. The Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center and the National Emergency Training Center in Emmitsburg, Maryland. FEMA also has nearly 4,000 standby disaster assistance employees who are available for deployment after disasters. Often, FEMA works in partnership with other organizations that are part of the nation's emergency management system. These partners include state and local emergency management agencies, 27 federal agencies, and the American Red Cross. FEMA's mission is to support our citizens and first responders to ensure
that as a nation, we work together to build, sustain, and improve our capability to prepare for, protect against, respond to, recover from, and mitigate all hazards. Disaster. It strikes anytime, anywhere, and it may take many forms. A hurricane, an earthquake, a tornado, a flood, a fire, a hazardous spill, or an act of nature, or an act of terrorism. It builds over days or weeks or hits suddenly without warning. Every year, millions of Americans face disaster and its terrifying consequences. On March 1st, 2003, FEMA became part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. U.S. Department of the Interior. The U.S. Department of the Interior oversees the Bureau of Reclamation, Minerals Management Services, Bureau of Land Management, and the Geological Survey. If you're going to be selling land, those are some important things to know. The U.S. Department of the Interior oversees the Bureau of Reclamation, Minerals Management Services, that has to do with mineral rights under the ground, Bureau of Land Management, that has to do with hunting and things like that, Geological Survey, that probably has to do with water, with those departments as well. You're going to want to know about them. The Department of Veterans Affairs, VA Benefits Administration Division, guarantees home loans for veterans. A veteran can apply for a VA loan with any mortgage lender that participates in the VA home loan program. At some point, they will need to get a certificate of eligibility from VA to prove to the lender that they are eligible for a VA loan. So start getting that as soon as you start working with your VA client, a certificate of eligibility. This shows their proof of military service. From the VA website, the following is acceptable proof of military service. If you are still serving on a regular duty, active duty, you have to include an original statement of service signed by at the discretion of an adjutant personnel officer. If you were discharged from regular service duty, if you're still serving on regular active duty, if you were discharged from the selective reserves, and if you're still serving in the selected reserves or the National Guard. And there's paperwork that you need from all of those. I'll put a list of it up for you. A photocopy, don't submit an original document, and a record of service. Those are some of the things that you're going to need. According to the website, your eligibility is reusable depending on the circumstance. Normally, if you paid off your prior VA loan and disposed of the property, you can have your used eligibility restored for additional use. Also, on a one-time only basis, you may have your eligibility restored if your prior VA loan has been paid in full, but you still own the property. In either case, to obtain a restoration of the eligibility, you have to send a completed VA form, blah, 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 in. 261880 Winston-Salem Eligibility Center is where you're going to send it to. You might need that. VA loans are guaranteed by the Veterans Administration and are available to veterans who can provide a DD-214 showing that they've met the service requirements to be eligible for the program. VA guaranteed loans are made by private lenders such as banks, savings and loans, or mortgage companies for the purchase of the home, and that they must be used for their own personal occupancy. To get a loan, a VA veteran must apply to a lender. If the loan's approved, they'll guarantee a portion to the lender. Using a VA loan, a veteran can finance 100% of the purchase of the home. If the seller of the home is willing to pay the veteran's closing costs, a veteran is often able to purchase with no cash out of pocket. None. Zero. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, publishes a brief guide to mold, moisture, and your home, and to protect your family from lead in your home, available as a pamphlet on its website. It's to protect human health and the environment. Since 1970, it's been working for a cleaner, healthier environment for the American people. The Federal Trade Commission, its mission is to prevent business practices that are anti-competitive or deceptive or unfair to consumers. to enhance informed consumer choice and public understanding of the competitive process, and to accomplish this without unduly burdening legitimate business activity. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, bet you always wondered about that, FDIC. It preserves and promotes public confidence in the U.S. financial system by ensuring deposits in banks and thrift institutions for at least $250,000 by identifying, monitoring, and addressing risks to the deposit insurance funds, and by limiting the effects on the economy of the financial system when a bank or thrift institution fails. An independent agency of the federal government, the FDIC, was created in 1933 in response to the thousands of bank failures that occurred in the 20s and 30s, the Great Depression. Since the start of the FDIC insurance on January 1st, 1934, no depositor has lost a single cent of insured funds as a result of the failure. The Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve Bank, FRB, is the central bank in the United States. It was founded in 1913, Federal Reserve Bank, to provide the nation with a safer, more flexible, and more stable monetary and financial system. The Federal Reserve's duties fall into four categories: conducting the nation's monetary policy by influencing the monetary and credit conditions in the economy in pursuit of maximum employment, stable prices, and moderate loss long-term rates; supervising and regulating banking institutions to ensure the safety and soundness of the nation's banking and financial system, and to protect the credit rights of consumers; maintaining the stability of the financial system and containing systemic risk that may arise in financial markets; providing financial services to depository institutions, the U.S. government, and foreign official institutions, including playing a major role in operating the nation's payment systems. That kind of sounds like the guy that increases interest rates to me. I think that's who people call the Fed. And don't forget, it's the Central Bank of the United States. It was founded in 1913, and to provide the nation with a safer, more flexible, and more stable monetary system. Yeah, that's the Fed. Truth in Lending Act, known as TILA or Regulation Z. Talked about that quite a few times in some of our early things. An important regulation of the FRB, Federal Reserve Board, I bet, that has a direct effect on the financial and real estate industry is the Truth in Lending Act, TILA, or Regulation Z. Regulation Z requires uniform methods for computing the cost of credit and for disclosing all credit terms. Below are some of the major regulations. Comply with special requirements when advertising credit. Give borrowers written disclosure on essential credit terms, including the cost of credit expressed as a finance charge and an annual percentage rate. Respond to consumer complaints of billing errors on certain credit accounts within a specified period. Inform customers of the right of rescission in certain mortgage-related loans with a specified period. Washington State Housing Finance Commission. The Washington State Housing Finance Commission aids in financing and education for brokers and consumers. It provides affordable housing and it offers tax credits to homebuyers. It helps finance the following: home ownership, nonprofit facilities bonds, nonprofit multifamily housing bonds, beginning farmers and ranchers, land acquisition programs, low-income housing tax credits. It also has program information for the following: mortgage and real estate professionals, compliance professionals, preservation and affordable housing, senior housing professionals, bond investors. Washington State Real Estate Commission. The Washington State Real Estate Commission oversees the development and administration of licensing laws and regulations. The following is a copy of their mission statement: to uphold, protect, and promote the public interest, which embraces both the interests of regulated brokers and the entities and the interests of consumers by the fair and impartial development and administration of the licensing laws and regulations. So it sounds like the Washington State Real Estate Commission is the one that comes up with the laws. Attorney General of Washington Consumer Protection Division. The Attorney General leads a team of attorneys who represent state clients and the public interest as directed under state law. Wow. A key priority of the Attorney General is to safeguard consumers with fraud and unfair business practices. They enforce consumer protection. They educate the public on issues such as identity theft and scams. They mediate complaints between consumers and businesses. They administer Washington limit laws for motor vehicles, warranties, arbitration, education, and manufacturer and dealer enforcement. They represent consumers who would not otherwise have an effective voice in cases regarding utility company rates and operations. The Department of Ecology of the State of Washington. The Department of Ecology of the State of Washington oversees shorelands, air, and water quality, water cleanup, and toxic hazards. It oversees 10 major environmental management programs from its website. Air quality mission to protect, preserve, and enhance the air quality of Washington to safeguard public health and the environment and support high quality of life for current and future generations. That's the air quality mission. The environmental assessment mission is to measure and assess environmental conditions in Washington state. The hazardous waste and toxics mission fosters sustainability and prevent pollution and promote safe waste management. Nuclear waste mission to lead the effective and efficient cleanup of the U.S. Department of Energy's Hanford site, ensure sound management of mixed hazardous waste in Washington, and protect the state's air, water, and land and adjacent to the Hanford site. Shorelands and Environmental Assistance Mission to work in partnership with communities to support healthy watersheds and promote statewide environmental interests, including coastal zone management, Conservation Corps, federal permitting, floods, ocean reserves, Office of Regulatory Assistance, Padilla Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, SEPA, shoreline management, watersheds, and wetlands. Spill prevention, preparedness, and response mission to protect Washington's environment, public health, and safety through a comprehensive spill prevention, preparedness, response program. Toxic cleanups mission to get and keep contaminants out of the environment. This includes sediment management and underground storage tanks. Waste to resources mission to include the amount and effects of waste generated in Washington state, including the industrial section. Water quality mission to protect and restore Washington's waters. We got a lot of missions in Washington state. Water resources mission to manage water resources to meet the current and future needs of the natural environment and Washington's communities, which includes water well log report, search, and review. Water State Human Rights Commission, Fair Housing Division. This division developed and enforces fair housing laws in Washington state. The following is the mission statement. It's to eliminate and prevent discrimination through fair and applicable application of the law, the efficient use of resources, and the establishment of productive partnerships in the community. The Washington State Human Rights Commission enforces the law against discrimination. The commission works to prevent and eliminate discrimination by investigating civil rights and complaints and providing education and training opportunities throughout the state. The Department of Revenue oversees real estate excise tax on sales and water rights. The governor and the state legislators develop bills and statutes that affect how real estate is transacted. Local agencies that regulate real estate laws. There's the MLS, the mayor and city planning, local planning and land use bureaus, city and county housing authorities. Let me see if there's something we should know about that. So the MLS's rules develop and enforce rules that govern how members work. The mayor and city planning advises the mayor, the city council, and the city departments on broad planning goals and policies for the physical development of the city. Local planning and land use bureaus administer land use permits. City and county housing authority provide housing assistance and subsidies for low-income residents and seniors. Local building department, zoning restrictions and compliance. County tax assessor responsible for assessing and collecting property taxes. Well, that's a lot of stuff. So, oh, there's only 2 more pages. All right. Legal and ethical requirements. Introduction. Beginning on page 20, we discuss the many local, state, and federal organizations that affect the legal requirements of a firm. Later on page 62, we will also discuss antitrust in detail and how it relates to the real estate industry. For those brokers who are members of the National Association of Realtors, they have a code of ethics and standard of practice for all of their members. The code of ethics describes how its members should treat both the public and each other. The revised code of Washington, which also deals with acts that are unprofessional or unethical, will also be discussed. With respect to unfair business practices, the consumer protection law that is defined as unfair methods of competition and unfair or deceptive acts or practices in the conduct of any trade or commerce are hereby declared unlawful. It's illegal. It also states that it shall be unlawful for any person to monopolize or attempt to monopolize or combine or conspire with any other person or persons to monopolize any part of trade or commerce. Okay. Statutory duties of a real estate firm. A real estate firm has a statutory written responsibility to the client. Any funds that may be held in a trust account by the brokerage for the client must be handled properly and in accordance with the laws. A broker is acting as a subagent for the brokerage when providing real estate services to his or her client. The brokerage is the actual agent and thus has all of the statutory responsibilities associated with agency law. If a broker is representing a buyer, that means the firm and the supervising manager broker is responsible to provide the same agency duties as the broker. The exception is if the broker and any of the supervising managing brokers are acting as dual agents. And that is our entire section. Hold on legal environment and the real estate brokerage. So those are all really important things. I would suggest that you listen to that a bunch of times so that you're prepared for the test. I'm taking mine again tomorrow.